welcome back to the Real Deal Investing Podcast. Today, we're joined by my co-host, Jerron Kelley, real estate attorney at Kelley Grant and Hannis Law, Griffin Wallace, my buddy and my partner at the Mastropieri Group, and Armand Grossman, our guest. Thanks for coming. He is known as the most interesting man in the world.
Or at least Miami, right? At minimum Miami. Yeah.
And so we're going to get into why that is, and we're going to talk a lot about your background, and I'm excited to learn more too, because we've spent a bit of time together, and frankly, we've talked about a lot of stuff, and there's just so much there to unpack that I don't know about, right? So why don't we start with who you are and what your background is, maybe in business a little bit, and some of your history.
Well, I was in law school during Vietnam, and I fully intended to be a lawyer, but Vietnam saved me because I got drafted and I became a teacher, which exempted me from the service, and so it saved me from a career in law. And actually, I'm glad in many ways I admire a legal career, and I was friends with many of my law school friends, my buddies that I went to school with we stayed close for all of the rest of our lives.
But I needed my own Vietnam. I don't know what happened. Sorry. I needed a war. I needed a draft to get me out of being a lawyer.
Well, at that time, Vietnam was very unpopular when I was drafted. Sure. And history has proven it to be correct, that was a waste of a horrible waste of nearly 58,000 and 150,000 casualties for no particular reason. Mm-hmm. But if you became a teacher, you were exempt from the draft. And so I actually received my draft notice, and with a little law school under my belt and my law school friends, I filed a motion in circuit court to tie it up. And I actually sued Louis B. Hersey, who was the general who was in charge of the draft at that particular time. And then once I was in court, and of course I never stepped forward. I'd been under military law. I stayed under civil law. And that gave me enough time. And I came to Dade County because I'd gone to graduate school here in Florida. Mm-hmm. And I had a degree in counseling, and so I could get a job as a high school guidance counselor, which I did. And I said, well, I'll go a couple of years and do this, and I'll go back to Cleveland and finish law school. Well, that never happened. I started an MBA program, got into the world of business, and a very interesting thing happened to me at that particular point as well. They had just desegregated the Dade County schools, which is hard to believe. And black teachers were at black schools and white teachers at white schools, and this was long overdue. And so I ended up going to Miami Northwestern High School, which is a huge inner city school in the heart of Liberty City. And everybody said, well, who did you piss off? You're going to that. And that turned out to be 4 of the best years because I became the basketball coach.
Nice.
And I coached basketball there for 4 years. We lost 6 regular season games over the 4 years I was there. And one of the things that I got into was sports psychology and the psychology of winning and so forth. And so I did some things with my kids in the locker room at that particular time, which was relatively unusual. And I would have them actually write out their goals for the game. And they would tell me, Coach, I'm going to get 12 points and 7 rebounds. Well, we may be ahead by 15, 20 points going into the fourth or more. But they didn't have the 12 points and 7 points, which was their own goals, which they immediately they prescribed for themselves. They were still giving me 110% on the floor.
Awesome.
And the second thing we did was the art of visualization. I had been to a sports clinic and visualizing yourself in performance. And so we would actually have my kids close their eyes in the locker room and visualize their performance on the floor before they played the game. So every time they stepped up to the foul line, they could see that ball hitting the back of the net. Every time that ball came off the boards, we were fast breaking and as fast so if they can visualize that all before they stepped onto the floor, when they stepped onto the floor, they were then playing the game for the second time. The first time they played the game in the mind's eye, and the second time that became their real performance. And I believe those 2 factors contributed significantly to the success that we had at Northwestern. And I was extremely proud of the fact that our kids did so well. And today, Northwestern, I think they've got 38 kids in the NFL that have either passed through and have been outstanding stars. But it's some great athletes at the school. And it was my pleasure, absolutely my pleasure and my privilege to coach some of those kids. It was just good kids.
Great story. Yeah. great experience.
So what year was that? Because that was probably unheard of at that time, right?
It was unheard of at that time. 1970, 1974 was my coaching years, but it was my first business that I ever got into as well, which I never shared with you guys, although we spoke for a long time. And I decided I was going to play football again, and so I tried out for a semi-pro team called the Miami Buccaneers, and I played one game. And I think even my hair hurt after the game. It was brutal, absolutely brutal. And there was a linebacker on the other side. It was like a refrigerator. This kid was like, you hit this kid. Oh, my God. I was like running into a concrete wall. And I said, who owns this team? And they said, no, we're just a club. But, well, they were in a well-organized league, the Florida Football League. And that was the Jacksonville Sharks and the Orlando Panthers and a number of substantial teams. And they were just a club. So I formed a corporation that's still under Sunbiz, the Miami Buccaneers. And then I found out that it was relatively easy to sell stock in that team because everybody wanted a particular part of that team. And I learned a whole lot from that experience. We literally had 400 guys try out at a tryout. And we had some really great athletes because at that time the NFL was 40% less than it is today, a number of teams that played. So there were a lot of players that got cut and then they went home. Or they went to Canada, which had already started their season. There was no European league at the time. Whereas in baseball, if you get cut, you go AAA. If you go to AAA, you go AA and so forth. So there's this farm system. So we had all these great athletes. And then we had the guys who came with their shorts, Bermuda shorts and black socks, and they tried out as well. And I had a great coaching staff, though. Mike Hargrove then went on to be the strength coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Jerry Mays, who had been with the Kansas City Chiefs at the one time. We had a great coaching staff. We ended up with some tremendous players. And so selling stock into the company at that particular time was pretty easy. Guys wanted to own part of a football team. Mm-hmm. And particularly with the players that we had that had come from the University of Miami. And so as a result of that, it was a great business experience. And then we ended up, all our ticket distribution went through 7-Eleven. And 7-Eleven wanted to be part of that, come in and get your, they were catering to the guy, because to go to a Dolphin game was much more expensive. Our tickets were $8. So the guy who stops into 7-Eleven to get a beer and a hot dog and so forth, he's going to be an ideal candidate to go see a Miami Buccaneer game. And so our ticket distribution was through them. Then we signed 9 guys into the NFL after my first year. Wow. And some of the great coaches, Marv Levy, who would coach the Montreal Alouettes, and then came and did the Buffalo Bills head coach.
Now, what year was this?
This was 73. 72, okay. 73, 73, 74.
That's right around the perfect season of the Dolphins.
It was right after that. Yeah. It was just after that.
And then,
it was 72 was their perfect season. Yeah. And Zonka,
more Super Bowls after that, 74, I think, and a few others. Yeah, but awesome.
But here's another thing that I learned out of that. And there's a fine line between the guys who made the NFL and the guys who don't make the NFL, and the coaches don't always know. They look at a guy and they'll say, well, go with this. And they're going by gut, they're going by instinct and so forth. And probably the most extensive, thorough, comprehensive job interview is the NFL. When they go through the combine reports, they look at the psychological, what do you run the 4.6, what's your grade score, how do you get along with your teammates, what's your personal, and what happens? Sometimes the guy's a dud. And the other guys that they cut come back and turn out to be superstars. Mm-hmm. I had the great privilege of having dinner one night with Schnellenberger and Bobby Bowden right here in Boca. And Bobby is two
what a gentleman. What a great guy.
Wonderful men.
Yeah. What a wonderful guy. Yeah.
And Bowden is so loquacious and so giving and so forth. If you've seen the movie Marshall, We Are Marshall, with the plane crash, and those guys went in to see him. I think he was coaching West Virginia at the time, and they asked him, he says, you guys want my game films? Quick, take my game films. Very generous individual. Yeah. And so I brought it up with Bobby like he's my good friend, which I'd be.
He was everyone's good friend. That was one of his great qualities.
Well, he was.
They thought he was.
He made you feel that way.
Made you feel that way, yeah.
And I said, "How do you pick your guys?" And he said, "Armand," he says, you take your pick and you never know how it's going to turn out. And then you never know how the kid, no matter how great that combine, you don't know how that kid's going to perform under certain circumstances. And as we spoke earlier, I just finished a book. It's on final edit called The Privilege of Adversity. And I talked about how some people have overcome the odds to become great. And I used Tom Brady's combine report. He's too slow. He doesn't smoke. He's slow on his feet. His spiral isn't tight. He doesn't read the defenses. And nobody. It took him 199th in the draft.
Mm-hmm. Wild.
He goes on to be the GOAT.
Backup quarterback in Michigan.
Yeah, backup quarterback in Michigan.
It's crazy.
And turns out to be the spectacular. And I tell this when I talk to kids. I taught at FAU for some time. And I would tell kids that in the business department, you really don't know who you are, and don't ever let anybody else define you, because they don't know who you are. In fact, you really don't know who you are until you got tested under certain circumstances and you rise to the occasion to become much more than you ever thought you could be.
Amen.
And you see that all the time, and it's so inspirational. What's happening right now? University of Indiana, IU, wins a national championship in football.
Insane.
Unheard of.
And the terrific players.
With their coach was there for 2 years, and last year first year made it to this college football playoffs in his first year, and then second year had this perfect season. And it's unbelievable. But that's a whole nother hour-long podcast is how that team made it, and what their psychology is, and his psychology as the head coach. Yeah,
2 kids from Miami who wanted to be recruited by the University of Miami, who wanted to play in the Orange Bowl or.
Pons was one of them, the cornerback. Exactly. Got turned down, and
they weren't
showed them who's boss.
They weren't interested.
Yeah.
Menendez, Fernando
Mendoza. Him too.
Mendoza.
What a great storyline, that whole.
And then go on to beat Miami.
Yeah.
Well,
crazy.
Sometimes we've.
And his dad played with Cristobal at Columbus High School, and the whole thing.
It's a great story.
Yeah. But how did you? So you've got an amazing past, some amazing stories.
How did all of it?
Yeah. How did that get into real estate? Where did that transition go?
Oh, excellent question. I after I did a master's in human behavior, I did an MBA at night, and some of my guys that I were with, we got into real estate. And I said, one of the things, I wanted to buy my own first home. Mm-hmm. And I had a great mentor, how important it is to have a great mentor or a great coach. And my mentor's name was Gene Perry. And he helped me so much. I actually bought a home in Miami Springs, my first house. And by the way, I am a big advocate of home ownership. I would like everyone to own their own home. Not only from the financial standpoint, but also from the psychological standpoint of owning your own home is huge. When it becomes yours, if you rent a car, do you treat it like your own car? No. As soon as you rent a car, do you go wash it and wax it? No, of course not. But when it's your own home, boy, you take care of that home, and there's pride and ownership and so forth, and you own a piece of the rock. And that is a foundational aspect of the American dream, to own your own home.
It's like a share of ownership of America. You have your own little slice of land of America,
right.
And it creates patriotism, it creates ownership, it creates
absolutely
gratitude. Yeah.
There's a major real estate broker in this city who owns a ton of real estate. I see him out in his front yard putting flowers in, and it's a good friend of ours in the Scuttlebutt. You would know his name. And it's Jim Rosemurgy. I love Rosemurgy. He's a wonderful man. Mm-hmm. Owns a lot of real estate, a lot of apartment buildings. He's out there putting plants. He said, Armand, when I dig in the ground, that's my ground. Mm-hmm. That's my piece. That's just putting a plant in the ground. He said, it's magical. This is my ground. And that's why I'm such an advocate for people owning their own home and their second home. Go ahead and buy a second home. Mm-hmm. Go ahead and rent that out. Try that out for size. You'll be a happy camper if you do that. And so I had a broker by the name of Gene Perry, who was my mentor, and I bought this house in Miami Springs. And I paid $49,000 for the house, and it was a nice home. And I told everybody about my house, and I'm showing my house. I bought this house. I am filled with pride. This is my house. Mm-hmm. I didn't close. Why? I didn't qualify for a mortgage. No, I didn't tell people I didn't qualify for the mortgage. I didn't tell them that part.
Yeah.
And then 6 months later, I bought an $80,000 home on the water with a guest house behind it and open beam cathedral ceiling and a big coral rock fireplace and an older home. Gorgeous piece of property. And Gene Perry showed me how to do that by leasing with an option to buy. It's a strategy you don't get in graduate school. It's a strategy, such strategies as using the mortgages in a proper way and so forth, that only a mentor, that somebody who's knowledgeable, can show you how to put the deals together. And then I went on and bought some apartment buildings and so forth. But real estate has been very, very good to me. Very good to me. I have to agree with Jim Rosemary. I love to dig up, put a shovel in the ground, and it's my house.
So we also talked. You've done a lot of single tenant property as well, right? Mm-hmm. So how did you? You explain this to me too. So how did you go from, because you got entrenched in the education piece of this,
right?
And then and also you were doing it at the same time. I just found this is like, he's like a modern day, like, I don't know.
Well, I fell into the seminar business. Yeah. I was teaching, which came natural to me, and I did some stage plays. I think I mentioned I was.
That was it. Started off as an actor, and I did 6 stage plays, which I can't believe I did today. To think that I memorized all that script and walked out. But 2 of the plays were I became good friends with Burt Reynolds, and he put me in a couple of movies.
That's right. You're in. I looked you up on IMDb. That's right.
Yeah.
He's on IMDb. Movie, it's great.
And then I did.
Another great guy. Yeah.
Oh, another
Jupiter. Yeah. He went to Palm Beach High. Yeah.
Yeah. I was at his house at the end. We went out to dinner, went to lunch one day. I have a 1970 GTO.
Yeah.
And I picked him up in my GTO with another Florida State grad, my good friend, lifelong buddy Race. And we went to lunch, and then we were back, and he got out his yearbook. Mm-hmm. And he was showing me his yearbook, and he was the most likely to succeed.
Yeah,
and he's always likable. Good football player,
good guy.
For his classmates to vote him in high school.
Another Bobby Bowden kind of guy, salt of the earth. And,
wonderful guy.
Yeah,
so I did these 2 plays up at Burt Reynolds Dinner Theater, and Charles Nelson Riley was my director, and huge. Your facial expressions, how to hold a laugh line, how to deliver the line, how to stay focused, and so forth. And I did Plaza Suite and California Suite. And you walk out on stage in 30 minutes of uninterrupted dialogue with an actress. And it's today, I'm not sure I can remember what I had for breakfast this morning, but at that time, you'd go through that whole. So I was accustomed to going out on stage, and never in my life have I been more scared than when I walked out on that stage.
The first time, especially.
And then the first time I did a play called Bell, Book, and Candle, and one of my friends sent me a notepad, break a leg. Break a leg? I'm nervous now. You got to tell me. Well, I didn't realize that's a theater term for good luck. I thought I'd break a leg. Anyway, I got into the seminar business, and how I got into it was by the back door as well. I was working for a company called Consolidated Capital out of Emeryville, California, and we were doing tax equity syndication work when we would sell shares into buildings at that particular time. At that time, of course, that was 1982 or so, and you had this accelerated cost recovery system on the tax and a 50-year depreciation, and so it was a very easy sell to sell these shares. And the first seminar I did for them, I was dealing with broker-dealers, and I was up there, I poured over these figures, and I went over all these figures of how I got this right and so forth. Well, I could tell that I was losing my audience. Mm-hmm. I know, and on stage, I can tell if I'm losing the audience. So I had been listening to, and it began on January the 19th, 1977. How would I remember that date? It snowed in Miami. It literally, snowflakes were coming down, and the only time ever. And I had these Earl Nightingale tapes in my office. So I had never listened to them. I never listened to them because I didn't need them. Arrogance is the greatest impediment to growth and learning, truly. When you think you know it all, the more you know you don't know. The less you know, you think you know everything. Those are called teenagers. So I took these tapes home, and the house that I bought, the $80,000 house, did not have central air. It had window shakers. This is 74. And the window shakers, those are the air conditioner fits in, and a reverse cycle. But that reverse cycle doesn't work under 40 degrees. So there was no heat in the house. Wow. But it did have a fireplace, so I put a fire in the fireplace, not for aesthetics, but for warmth. Mm-hmm. And I had a card table in there and some folding chairs, and I got out these tapes. Maybe I'll listen to these. Well, it was like digging into a vein of pure gold. It changed my outlook. It truly did. And once I changed the way, there's an old adage, you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. And suddenly there was value in this. I couldn't get enough of it. And so these cassette tapes, I didn't listen to the radio in my car. I play the cassette tapes all the time, over and over. Now, I'm telling you this because then I got up and I'm doing the broker-dealer seminar with the broker-dealers, and I realized I have lost them. I can see that you can. So I said, look, guys, you know these numbers better than I do. I don't need to explain these numbers to you. And I didn't. They knew the numbers. That wasn't so complex. I said, but what I'm going to do is I'd like to give you 5 reasons why your customers will do business with you and will do business with you only, and you will have a customer for life. Suddenly, the temperature of the room changes. You can see people sit up. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, the pens come out. They become more attentive. And now I got to come up with 5 reasons. And all of a sudden, I've been listening to these Earl Nightingale tapes, and they began to flow. I said, I can't believe Earl Nightingale's speaking. I nearly memorized them. And so I went through this, and they were taking notes vociferously. And I got done. I got to come up with a 5th one. I shared it with you. Yeah. So now I got to come up with a 5th one. And so I said, walk 20% faster. And so that may sound, well, what it does is the physiological nature. When you pick up your exercise and so forth, you're oxygenating yourself a little bit more, deep breathing a little bit better, and so forth and so forth. And it does have very positive outfit. Rather than slowing along, you just pick up the pace a little bit and you become more energetic. And then one thing led to another, and I got into the real estate education business. And I was teaching people how to buy homes. And I started off with the lease option, which Gene Perry had told me. And I talked about tax advantages and so forth. And I did it for 25 years. And most recently, then my last 5 years, I talked about, I got into something which was phenomenal to me. And most people, I had a lot of real estate developers and some real estate attorneys that were not familiar with the advantages of a single-tenant triple-net lease property. And we talked about how to finance those and put those together and so forth. Now the question comes up, Jen. I taught these things, for instance, and we also taught how to pay off a mortgage, take a 30-year mortgage and pay it off in 14 years and 10 months and so forth. And there's a mathematical formula of how to do that and do it properly and so forth. And it works out extremely well, which went over very well with the audiences. But I was always curious as to why, for instance, a lease option. If you can afford to rent, you can afford to buy. Now, at that particular time, rents were better, and interest rates were again higher, like they are. Well, I don't even call today's rate high. Today's what it used to be. Mm-hmm. I remember 12% interest rates when I built a condominium project down in Doral, and actually mortgage rates went to 18%, as I recall, and the prime rate was 22. Try and sell a building under those circumstances. We sold it to Johnstown Property, and they turned my beautiful condominium project into an apartment building with the finest kitchens you could find. Everything was done first class. But when I would teach things like a lease with an option to buy, I would tell people I can get you into a home in the next 3 months. And so why didn't people do this? If it's a proven technique, well, I could say with great certitude, well, why are some people so successful in life and others are not? And sometimes they don't. There's a lack of worthiness. That doesn't happen to me. I'm born to lose. And all those negative things, that positive self-talk. I always said, beware of the thief. Not the thief that's going to break into your house, but the thief in your head. Because the thief in the head will deny you that success. The thief in the head will not permit you to move forward. If your script early on in life that was handed to you, which we talked about earlier, does not permit you to be successful, you never will. And yet others, boy, take a look at some of these wonderful guys right here and not too distant from us as we sit, who are extremely successful in real estate. And it's a great pathway to long-term wealth.
Agreed. I'm curious about some of the things you teach about the single tenant, triple net leases. You know, I know Larry and we invest in multifamily and, you know, long-term traditional tenants. So, you know, we don't get, I know Larry has one or two Airbnbs he does as well, but we haven't gotten into those types of properties. I know that they're fantastic for especially people transitioning who've built and amassed some amount of wealth and want to have stability. Maybe they're getting into the harvesting phase of their life, the retirement phase, and they want to deploy their whatever it is, $1 million or $2 million, and they want to have a set income that doesn't vary very much. And those are great opportunities for those types of people. But you obviously know more about this, so would love to hear from you about the pros and cons of this.
Well, I having been an investor in single-family tenant properties and so forth, and I was telling the guys when we first met, we had a couple of condominiums, and then in order to get a repairman to go into the condominium, he has to be certified, he has to have insurances cleared and so forth, and it'd be simple things like replacing a microwave oven. Well, I could go to a Lowe's and get a microwave oven for half the price of a retail, less that, with a scratch and dent, which is fine for an apartment building or a condo. And then my son and I could go in and put it in. And there's not much to it. Pull a plug and unscrew the thing and put it on the hinges and put it back in and plug it in. It's not that difficult. But as we were doing this lady had a couple of pugs, dogs. And I'm there. We're putting this thing out. I got my hands in it with this, and these dogs are like, they're biting my ankles. They're pulling on this. I said, lady, could you call? And I'm trying to put the thing in. I said, I am not going to buy another single family home and have a tenant like, and I've been all my, it's always tenant toilets trouble. It's always something. And some tenants are great. I had one tenant for 18 years, not steady rent. That's a dream.
That is a dream.
That is an absolute dream. An older couple, never call, fix this, fix that. They took care of everything. That's 1 in a million.
Yeah, you can't beat that.
No.
So I got introduced to triple net lease prospects by a friend of mine. And the advantage, I would tell an audience, I'm going to show you now, I don't prefer buying a single-family home, although it's a good thing, if you understand what I'm saying here. I would like to show you a situation where you have a guaranteed lease for a minimum of 5 years and possibly up to 15. You have a corporate guarantee on the lease. So if they default, somebody's going to take credit. That's impossible. Oh, no, it gets better. I'm going to show you a property where you don't pay any taxes. What? No, you don't pay any taxes on this property. I'm going to show you a property you have no insurance on the property. You don't have to pay the insurance premiums on the property. This doesn't exist. And I'd go through all the litany of the advantages of a triple net lease. And then we showed them all the companies that sell these. And the companies do not invest in the property. They buy the property and then they lease it out. And then they lease it under a triple net. And that triple net means that they will take care of the taxes, they pay insurance, and they take care of all the improvements on the property. So if the roof goes bad, now sometimes they'll carve out the roof, but often the roof is included and so forth. So all you do, your biggest problem is cashing your check, and you can eliminate that and go to direct deposit. And they'll send it into, and all you got to do is send a check into you every month, and then the appreciation of the property is yours as well. So you also get the taxes that come with it. They're paying the taxes, but you get the depreciation on the property. So I had several students that embraced it, but one in particular was a doctor, and he was pretty wealthy, but he bought a couple of Home Depots. Home Depot was an excellent triple net lease property. Home Depot is a great company. It's another
strong, stable, sure.
Another great company founded by Boca resident
Arthur Blank was one
Arthur
of them.
Blank, who owns the
Falcons, and forget the other guy.
He's a good guy. He lived here. He just passed away last year. I got to meet his son on occasion, and but they started that company with, and they're 50 years old. Mm-hmm. So there's a chapter in the book, Never Too Early, Never Too Late, and they were fired by Handy Dandy. Mm-hmm. They were both fired by Handy Dandy because they didn't understand the hardware business. Never let anybody else define you. They do not know who you are. You do not realize what you are capable of. And there's so many stories like that. Sam Walton was not fired by J.C. Penney. He didn't have a sense of retail. Oh my God! What bonehead came up with that one? There's so many situations. The great author John Grisham was turned down 15 times by various publishers. Wow. There was a time when I was on the airplane every weekend flying someplace doing a seminar. You weren't allowed to get on the plane without a John Grisham book. Everybody was reading John Grisham, yet he had been denied over and over. Yeah, I think the same thing was true with Colonel Sanders, his famous recipe and so forth. But there are countless stories like that which amaze me to the human spirit.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. So you obviously dealt with triple net properties. What else did you either dabble in or dive into as far as real estate? You mentioned residential as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I did was when I sold properties, I held the paper.
Okay.
I'd much rather hold a mortgage.
Okay.
And the payment comes in every month. If they default, and if it's a 60% loan to value, that's about one of the safest real estate investments one can possibly make, and you carry a nice interest rate with that. Mm-hmm. And so I strongly recommend people when they sell
do seller financing.
Yeah, do the seller financing on the property. Help the people buy the property, especially if they don't qualify for something. If they can come up with something and so forth.
And you also, you own a property, you have equity in it, you're selling it, you do seller financing. You're also saving money in taxes because you're not having a huge tax event because you're not taking 100% of the equity you have in the property. Maybe you're taking 40% of the equity, and you've got to deal with that one way or another, whether with a 1031 exchange or just paying the taxes. But the other amounts are being paid to you slowly over time, so you don't have a huge taxable event.
And it's beautiful. I mean, real estate's been so good to me. Mm-hmm. I taught for 30 years in the Dade County School, so I ended up staying. And,
you did? So you're teaching while you're doing
While I was doing this, I had some, we just mentioned before, Griff, that everything happens in a political environment, and I had been an elected official, and then I had some good political coverage in the school system and some good friends, and so I had a great job in the school system. Very good job in the school system, but I loved what I did as well because I got into vocational education, and so I was a supervisor, and I gave me all the latitude in the world to do my real estate business as well.
Awesome.
So I had a dual career the entire time, but I worked 7 days a week all that time as well.
So vocational school, so learning trades?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So some examples, what were you in the classroom or more administrative?
I was in the classroom for one period a day.
Okay.
And, but the last 13 years I was out of the classroom entirely. But I taught marketing.
Oh.
I taught marketing. And but this was the beautiful part about it. It was cooperative education. So that was my specialty, where the kids go to work part-time and go to school part-time, and they're released early to go to work. Mm-hmm. An invaluable experience for a kid to earn that money as a junior or senior in high school. Instead of taking, and then we put this program together, which was the only two requirements their senior year was English and government. And then after that, they were all enrichment courses. And so they didn't take the enrichment courses, they went to work. And that going to work every day, that was a spectacular. We all know you learn so much more on the job than you do in the classroom.
Absolutely.
And my education came from on the job, not out of the textbook. And my kids, there are countless. Quick real estate story. One of my students, I had mostly Cuban kids, first generation Cubans, who love America. Mm-hmm. With a passion. Wow. And his name is Marcus Egyptiaco. I said, how'd you come up with a name like that? They just throw some letters up and whatever that came down, it ended up being your last name. And so Marcos was a senior in high school, and he was asking me, because I would talk about real estate. It was inevitable. And he said, he's looking at a property, and he said, would you go look at it with me? It was a HUD property. Well, this is a high school senior. I went to look at the property, and I did not particularly care for that particular property, and I didn't think the numbers were particularly attractive on that particular one, and so I dissuaded him from trying to get involved with this particular property. Well, that kid today, in fact, the first house he ever bought was a property from me. He bought a house that I owned, and that got him started. And today, wow, he is multi. And he called me not too long ago, and he said, Mr. Grossman, I said, you can call me Armand. He said, Mr. Grossman, would like to invite you over for dinner to my home. And I said, he said, you want to bring your son and his girlfriend? Yeah. So my wife and I, and my son and my girlfriend went to his house. He said, do you like sushi? Oh, yeah, I like sushi. Yeah. I thought I'd go to Publix and get some sushi. He had 4 sushi chefs cooking this sushi for me. Then he took my son out, who's a car guy as well, showed him his collection of cars in this incredible estate that he owned. And he's 49 years old. But he got into corporate selling massive homes to the corporate, like Blackstones and so forth. And he was doing that, and just a phenomenal success. So now the question is, I had another example, a kid named Tommy Cabrizio. Tommy was a student. He came over from Cuba with his aunt and uncle, and his parents come the following year. Well, the following year, then Castro shut it down entirely. He didn't see his mother and father until years later. I have to share this with you. So his mother they would never let the mother and father come together because they wouldn't come back. And so he took his mother, when she came over, he took her to Publix. She started to cry. She said, Tommy, when are you allowed to come here? How much are you allowed to buy? She had never seen produce and meats and things like that. Socialism is good luck. Anyway, the kid was working he was selling clothes over at the flea market in Opelika. He got into the clothing thing, and this kid figured it out. And he started a company, and he started manufacturing his own offshore. And he was imitating Tommy Bahama. And so he called it Trends, and he sold that for reportedly $385 million. And then he got into the real estate business, and today he owns 10,000 doors. And he's into the cars as well, and his garage is down on Southwest 8th Street, and it's 8 stories high, and he leased the property next to it to a Tesla dealership. And then he has all his Ferraris, including a couple of Enzos. And one Enzo Ferrari just sold at Barrett Jackson last week for $32 million. $32 million for a car. Wow. And this is a kid who came over here with his aunt and uncle from Cuba. So if he can do that.
To me, what I'm hearing here is, you were at the very beginning of the process for people who live the American dream. I mean, that is the results. And now you're seeing the results, 30 years later for these guys that you knew when they were 17 or 18 years old. Now they're 49 and, multi-millionaires. It shows it can be done in less than one lifetime, a half a lifetime.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's at 49, they had all this wealth, and we were just talking about the Arthur Blank and these guys who started to become successful in their 50s. So it shows that in a second lifetime, you can maybe do even more. So
it's never too early. It's never too late.
Yeah. Well, America is a great place, and South Florida is wonderful too. And it's great that you had the opportunity to be an educator and really know that you had at least some amount of impact on these guys. These kids are now men's lives, and
right.
And they made something amazing of themselves. So kudos to you for that. So
it's extremely gratifying.
Yeah, I bet it is.
You also are a car dealer, or were a car dealer.
Right.
You were the vice mayor of Miami. Is that true?
Miami Springs.
There you go. Wow.
Yeah.
You've You've been around the block.
I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to be when I grow up.
I love that. We got to get that book out. That's what we got to do.
I'll be an author.
Yeah, there you go.
There it is.
That's cool.
Awesome.
Well, you had some amazing people and along the way. Yeah. Famous and not so famous, but what a journey. What are you currently doing at the moment? It sounds like you finished the book, right? Is it in publication?
It's just about to be. I've got a wonderful couple here in Boca Raton. They're called the Book Couple, and they've been very helpful to me. My friend Dick Schmidt, who's a very prominent name here in Boca Raton, he had done 3 books, which are fabulous fiction books. I mean, he just really wrote some great books, which I loved. And so he advised me to go see them. And so the Rosenbergs, their name, Carol Rosenberg, and she's and her husband, Gary. And they're helping me get this thing done. It took a long time. To sit down and actually write, and then you go through it, and then you write it again, and then research a little bit more, and write it again, and so forth. And they said, "Look, you've rewritten this thing too many. Just publish it. Yeah. Go with it, and then write your next book." And the next book, this is called The Privilege of Adversity. And where that grew out of is easily explained. I believe that probably one of the most determining factors in success is adversity. Out of adversity, greatness is born. You've got to know tough times. If you've never known tough times, it was the difference between my kids working part-time when they were in high school. Earned money is totally different than gifted money. Gifted money is not appreciated. Earned money, where you got to go to work. And I also believe it's a great experience to have to go to work every day with a job you don't particularly care for, but you got to do it to make things work and so forth. And you go through that period of your life, and all that will do is imbue a great deal of gratitude into the individual that you don't have to do that type of thing, but there's a great deal of sense of appreciation of accomplishment that you did it. You worked hard at it. And there's undoubtedly going to be failure along the way as well. Failure is probably one of the greatest learning experiences. And when I taught entrepreneurship at Northwood University, I would say you can expect to fail. That's going to happen. I don't encourage it. I hope it doesn't happen, but it probably will, because every entrepreneur has known failure in their life, and now you got to go back and do a reset.
It's true. That's true. Are you actually in the real estate game anymore? Whether it be, acting as an agent or finding deals, or
not really. No, I'm not doing that. I keep my license active, and my wife and I just bought another property down in the Florida Keys. I love the Keys. I think it's the most unusual piece of real estate in America, maybe in the world. Mm-hmm. A lot of friends of mine have bought over in the Bahamas. I don't feel comfortable in that. I want to be comfortable in this country.
Yep.
Or Greenland.
This country.
To be our country.
But I can't believe that the people, 50,000 people in Greenland, mm-hmm. and you didn't want to become part of the United States of America.
What are they getting? 100,000 apiece? Is that what it was?
I don't know, but you're going to become an American.
Big bucks.
Oh,
they did a deal. I don't think they're going to be a part of America, but
no,
we're going to have a. Yeah, let's just say the art of the deal was completed there. Yeah, yeah. You ask for the moon and the stars and the sun, and when you just get the moon, you got the moon. You never had the moon.
I guess he has done some negotiations in the past, and he seems to know how to do it.
One or two.
Yeah. And his son-in-law is equally as good.
Kushner?
Yeah,
he's done
a brilliant guy. Brilliant.
A lot of amazing peace deals they didn't get credit for. I didn't see them getting any Nobel Peace Prizes, but any other president who would have done those deals would have gotten
no question
4 of them,
about
5 of them.
Yeah, no question about it.
But we'll save politics for another time. Yeah. So, So any other amazing advice? You have so much wisdom that, over the years, but, for our audience that are investors, whether they're working, doing commercial investing or residential or syndicating or, being passive investors or active investors. What do you?
Well, you have so many pathways there. Yeah, and there's so many alternatives in real estate. Mm-hmm. My lifestyle today is because of real estate. No question about it. I'm also a market player. I still enjoy doing that, and I play the market, and I write covered calls and do things like that. But one good piece of real estate will really, and sometimes you can get lucky on a good piece of industrial. As right, we had a piece of industrial property down near Miami Springs, and my goodness,
it's gone crazy.
It's
industrial,
gone,
warehouse and industrial. Yeah.
Right, that sort of thing can be very good. So there's so many alternatives, and there's so many opportunities. And when I look at those kids that were sitting in my class in high school and have an interest in that, and I would like to, maybe I planted a little bit of a seed, talking about buying a house and but for those of us who are watching this, and today, I think that home ownership is still that, buy that first home, own your. There's such not only the pride of ownership, but it's that you're part of America. It's the American dream, and putting that shovel in the ground, as Jim Rosemurgy said to me, and it's just, and then after you see that, maybe you want to go a little further and buy another piece of property and so forth. But believing, knowing that it can happen.
Right. I think that's what you did for them. It's like, hey, you can at 17, you could buy a house, guys.
Right.
You know that? I don't know how many people knew that. Right.
Yeah.
And without you, they had no idea that's a thing.
Especially, 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't even on.
No
on
social
radar.
media.
It wasn't
no,
on TikTok.
No knowledge. So
Yeah.
you help them take that first step, and I think that's important. When I bought my first investment property, it was the same thing. It was the scariest thing in the world. But once I took that first step, learned it, renovated it, put that first tenant in there, I realized it could be replicated, and I realized I could do it again. And it's, the first step is the scariest, but once you take that, it's, it opens up a huge world of possibility.
Absolutely.
There's only one downside to, you were mentioning before about, direct deposits of payments, which of course is the standard nowadays, but getting checks in the mail, I don't get any checks in the mail anymore, but I'm sure there are maybe a few tenants here and there that will pay via check. But I do remember when the first couple rental properties I bought, I self-managed, so most of the time the tenants were still paying me in checks. This is 15 years ago, 13 years ago. But getting that check in the mail and seeing it, seeing the $950 or the $1,500 or whatever, it's tangible. You feel it, and there's a little excitement to it. At the first of the month or the second of the month, you get the checks and you go to the bank and you deposit it. And there's energy, pride of ownership, pride of you feel. The moves that you've made have led to this monthly success, and then it inspires you to do more. Whereas just when there are numbers on a bank account that maybe you just log in on your phone and your app, I don't know, it doesn't have that tangible effect anymore. It doesn't mean that I'm not still buying or investing or wanting to do it, but there was definitely something different about that, getting that mailbox money, as I call it. So
Exactly.
The days of I think those days have mostly passed, but
you
have to find inspiration somewhere else.
But it's true. I fully understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
And to get that check in your hand.
Yeah. Or even, there were some tenants that would pay me in cash sometimes too. They'd ask to come over and hand me cash. Okay, we can do that.
Well, my payments on the mortgages they come in check every month, and boy, they come in like clockwork.
Yeah,
because they're aware of the fact that a default means we're going to take the property back.
Sure,
and we have that lumen. I'm kind of benevolent when it comes to that. I said, now look, you missed a payment here. I'm not looking to take this back.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to
It's
hit
not
it.
the goal here.
Yeah, no, it's not that. I could do that. But there's a certain karma, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Treat people differently, and they're under circumstances, and you want to do that. So
sure, of course. Yeah.
I started talking about the Florida Keys. I think it's the most unique piece of real estate in America. It's one road, goes to Key West, and 700 islands or whatever the total is down there. And but I think that's a unique piece of real estate. And there's a club off in Key Largo called Ocean Reef.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful place.
Beautiful. Prices there at this private club with its airstrip and golf course and so forth are just gone to the moon.
Skyrocketed.
Loaded.
Yeah, a slip is a couple $1 million, and all it is a wood deck and a water. And I mean, it's just amazing. It's amazing what can happen with real estate.
It is. It's time too. You know, you own these things over time, and you wake up a few years later, and one of the exercises I try to do at the end of the year is I try to run through my kind of list of properties and go log into the bank account, see what my loan balance is, and then also kind of value the properties, whether it's, if you have access to MLS, that's wonderful to do comps, but even just simple, go on Zillow and go on Redfin or realtor.com, go on a couple websites and just kind of average out what the estimates are of the property. So you kind of, what your net worth is and where you're at and where the compass is heading. I think it's important. It's not to dunk on anyone or I don't share that actually with anyone other than maybe my wife, but I think it's really important to kind of take stock of that at the end of every year, because that's also motivating too, to see the progress you're making year over year, because that mortgage pay down that all those tenants are paying down your mortgages, seeing the appreciation in the property, and seeing that the gap widening, which is your net worth essentially. Right. And it's good to do that every once in a while, since I don't really have mailbox money anymore. But that's another exercise that I do just to kind of keep stock of things. But it is amazing how over time it just starts to grow and grow and grow, and it's exciting as an investor. So, and
I'm sure you find that very personally rewarding.
Absolutely.
As well. There is that great benefit of to your own person and your own self-worth, and so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you've worked for it, like you said, and now you appreciate it without question.
Because real estate, unless you're flipping properties, and that's a different game, or wholesaling or whatever it is, it's not an immediate reward. You're not getting those immediate rewards right away, unless, again, you're in a flipping game. But if you're in a long-term buy and hold, maybe a little value add here and there, it is a long game, and the only way to take stock of that is to do it either annually or biannually or whatever it is, to go and analyze what the value of those properties are worth.
Yeah. I reflect on in 2019, I almost sold my whole portfolio, right? We were having a tough time, tenants, whatever, things were happening, and I was super busy, and I was just like, maybe we just roll this into something else, And so I valued everything. We had some commercial brokers take a look at it as well, and we sat there and we're just like, and then for whatever reason we're like, we're gonna suck it up. We're gonna move through this, because whether I realized it or not, I was aggregating stuff in tough neighborhoods, and it just became a little burdensome.
Mm-hmm, sure.
And then we're like, you know what, we're gonna forget that. We're gonna learn how to operate here. We're gonna get this done. We're gonna figure this out. We're gonna keep this stuff. Thank God.
Thank God.
And then we went ahead and bought a whole bunch more stuff from 19 to 21, and then stopped for a little while, and then recently just started acquiring again. And so long story short, like that, the time that like at that moment in 2019, you wouldn't have said. You probably weren't fast forwarding and being like, oh, this is going to be worth 2 times what it's worth
2x,
right now.
5, 6 years later, or something like that.
Or even forget 2x, just it could have went right, just let's be conservative. And now I look back on that and I'm like, wow, to your point, it's like, wow, look at what this, what time can do, or how real estate can just appreciate. And then, by the way, these properties we're buying, and they were rough neighborhoods, but they were like West Palm Beach downtown adjacent.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it just so happens it's next to the Nora project. It just so happens all of a sudden this big private equity firm bought every single piece of real estate and built this massive thing. And now it's like, oh, well, this thing's gonna be worth 3x what it's worth now if you just let the project finish, or whatever. Mm-hmm. Related just bought all the stuff on the same block. It's like, whoa, this is incredible. So I think to your point, my whole thing is like, we buy stuff that makes sense fundamentally today, but also has that get lucky possibility in the future. And if you hold long enough, usually those get lucky events happen just because of just general progress, right? It's just like, it's like, hey, we think long term this area is going to redevelop as the city of West Palm builds out. Okay, well, it might be 5 years, but 20 years from now for sure, right? Like this, so it's like, and if you're young enough doing this, it's like, it's kind of,
you can get 2 or 3 of those cycles.
It's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think, I reflect on that as I didn't make the mistake to learn the lesson, but I look at, I almost did that. And every time I've had that situation where like that adversity was so, like the pressure was so great, and then I just kept going, on the other side of that was just this incredible reward. It's crazy. And that's just one example to your point.
Well, look at the flip side. Imagine if you did sell it and then 2 years later, let's say into 2021, after the huge increases and appreciation occurred post-COVID, you would have wanted to slit your wrists. I mean, almost literally. Imagine the depression over a bad decision that you made, sort of, I don't know, emotionally rather than a logical decision. You know, I sometimes like to kind of role play that, you know, if I had made a bad decision, how would I have felt in that moment, to kind of another reward for making right decisions.
You just mentioned emotions too. Emotion plays a big part in it too. There's an emotion is the underpinning of risk, and you're taking a risk. But one of the things we didn't talk about in real estate, it still comes back to location, location, location. I mean, it's just location, location, location. But here's what you just said, Larry. Sometimes that location can change. The environment changes in that particular. The regentrification of a neighborhood can accelerate the appreciation of the properties, or a big investor comes in and things begin to change and so forth. But aren't you glad you kept on, got a piece of that pie? Boy, that's right. Great stuff.
Changed my life. Real estate has changed my life personally as well, and just like you said, right, all of us, all of us here, it's changed my life without question. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
You know, I like to develop that a little further too. I know I said it. I think I said it twice already. The tremendous pride of home ownership. Today we got so many people not buying homes. Trump was talking about a 50-year mortgage and so forth, which I was not necessarily adverse to, because you're not going to be in the house for 50 years anyway, and it all goes to principal those first few years anyway. So it does. The 50-year mortgage is almost a hypothetical. But to own that own home, the benefits of that own home, the appreciation is going to more than in the taxes and the pride of ownership. Your chances of becoming a better citizen and a more involved citizen in America, because now you got a piece of the pie. If you're a stockholder in a company, you got a greater. If you're an alumni of a particular university, you got a greater interest in that university rather than simply being a fan. Now you're an alumni. You carry that the rest of your life. I would see university presidents come and go, head football coaches come and go. Alumni, you are branded with that university for the rest of your life, and so you're a greater stakeholder of that. Well, the same thing is true in the financial environment.
It's true. It's true. Yeah, the 50-year mortgage would be interesting. Another thing I heard they were floating, which I think could be even more powerful, would be portability of mortgages. So, you know, you own a $800,000 house, you still have a $500,000 mortgage at 3.25%. You're stuck in this because if you go somewhere else, you're going to have a 6.25% mortgage, or you feel you're stuck. But you know what? If it's portable, you could go buy a property of similar value, or maybe even higher value, use that mortgage and get a second mortgage to get up to let's say a 75% LTV, and you could upsize and go to a $1.2 million house. I think that would create so much just business movement, listings, buyers, flexibility. I think the market would really heat up with a program like that. I really do.
Absolutely.
It'd be great for us realtors.
Oh, it would be. Yeah. And closing attorneys. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. I'm all in. I'm all in for that.
A lot more to be had.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of sellers are, like you said, holding on because of that low interest rate, and they feel like they can't move. So
they feel locked in.
Absolutely unlock a lot of inventory.
By 100%.
And here's another example of, hey, things change, environments change. Like, what happens if property tax gets kind of removed for a lot of this product?
Homesteaded properties, right?
But that's okay. But still, values probably move. More demand comes down to South Florida, and like, who knows how that's going to impact the real estate we currently own as well today. Right? It's just like these are
the only downside of that. I think there's always there's a pro and a con, or an upside and downside. The upside certainly is for people who currently own homes and are homesteaded. I think that's fantastic. I love it. And I love the principle of it, which is why should you have to pay a bunch of taxes, and live in this property, pay dock stamps, pay all of this, and then pay rent to the government, essentially, is what property taxes are. Sure, maybe you still have to pay for fire and police and some of the basic services, but to pay all of these other taxes, it doesn't make a lot of sense. The only problem, I think, is that I think you would see a major jump in prices on traditional homes, which would further exacerbate the problem of affordability for those people who don't yet have homes, the millennials and the Gen Zs that are looking to get in the market. So I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot smarter people than I am studying this issue and what the supply and demand would do here. But
it makes perfect sense. It's an exact worry of a lot of people that don't own homes yet.
Yeah,
and, I think it would inflate the prices before they get in. So
sure, yeah,
or it would inflate the prices, before they get in. So it would create even bigger divide and create more renters.
Correct. It's my opinion. I don't know that for sure. I haven't run studies on it, but it just seems natural.
Fundamentally, we probably need more supply in general, anyway, right? And so,
so here's my idea on that: is I know that many cities, so for example, we have a friend, Chris Lukai, who's an incredible just guy, but also an incredible builder, and he builds these big homes. He builds them typically in Delray, does them very quickly. I'm talking about 8,000, 9,000 square foot homes that he'll put up in about 6 months.
And they're well done.
And they're super well done. Very, very, very good. One of the things he does is he uses these engineers who come in, and he doesn't have to wait for the cities to come and do all these inspections. The city is the one that slows things down, and they create these artificial 2-year time frames when it should be 6 months or 8 months or 9 months. And that's like a tax in and of itself. It's a tax on the builder, which then is passed on to the buyer. So what I would propose is that they have a statewide mandatory program that they require all cities to honor properly licensed engineers, and they have to have standards around that. And there needs to be penalties for any engineers who are doing shady things, playing games and, cutting corners. But I think it could be properly rolled out statewide and then maybe nationally if it's a program that works, where you could, the time to build properties could be exponentially shortened, in my opinion, by builders and using the services of engineers. So just something that I've seen in my own life and experience with development. I think it should be rolled out statewide and perhaps nationally, because if you get more supply in the market, it's going to bring prices down.
I think this is something that's been brought up by the Trump administration, right? I'm pretty sure.
I don't know. I hadn't actually heard it, but maybe. Yeah. I know. It just is a good idea to discuss.
Well, the elimination of the property tax was an idea that was floated out a few years ago, and I showed me the construct to raise the sales tax to 9%. So you have 150 million. It's a user tax. You have 150 million tourists come to Florida every year. They're paying all this.
Sure, hotel taxes and travel taxes. Sure.
So to eliminate the property tax for the homestead, that would be incredible.
Yeah,
huge incentive.
I agreed.
Yeah.
I love the idea.
It feels really interesting. They're going to put it to a vote, right? So
we'll see. We'll see what's coming.
So I think most people are going to vote yes for no property tax.
I wonder what the percentage of homeowners versus tenants are now currently in the voter world. I don't know. That's another question. We have to go to ChatGPT for that.
Yeah.
So
in Florida.
It also depends how it's phrased, right?
I was just going to say, as long as they
phrase it interestingly, and it
Agreed.
may make people vote no on it.
Phrase it interestingly, or put a whole bunch of other BS in with the bill.
Add it into the bill.
Yeah. So as long as they just keep it clean, I'm guessing the answer is yes.
Probably.
And then
you would think.
And then they got to figure out how they're going to actually do it. There's a whole bunch of proposals. We kind of went through it.
Initially, it was right. It was just a Florida proposal, right?
Correct. It is.
It is right now, currently a Florida thing.
I thought I heard the Trump administration talking about it for the country.
Wow.
I don't know how they would do that, because property taxes are a local, county, and state sort of issue. So I don't know how.
Right.
I don't know how he would get involved in that.
It.
Maybe just mentioning it, and
just like he mentioned Greenland.
Man.
That's good stuff.
Oh, Greenland better watch out, I guess. Look what happened to Venezuela. He just took it.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, God. Well, any other notes? Anything else you want to chat about before we wrap up for today?
It's been a delightful experience. Thank you for having me with you guys.
We appreciate you being here, Armand.
It's been an honor. Thank you
pleasure.
for doing this.
My pleasure. Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
So what's our overall lesson? Buy real estate. just get in somehow.
I think prepare to accept the fact that the American dream is alive and well. And I hear stories say, "Oh no, it's over." It's not over. It's far from over. There are too many examples. As we were chatting a few moments before we went on the podcast here, I've known too many guys who just came from really very adverse situations who have taken the American dream and run with it. And it's open to everyone. But when you are thinking, "Oh no, it's not for me because of this or that and so forth," I reject that entirely.
Yeah,
totally. Because it's just,
and so much of the time you see it through the immigrant story, which it's fantastic when you see the first generation immigrants come here, and or the maybe the actual immigrants themselves or their children. They know the adversity, they know the socialism in Venezuela or in Cuba or Nicaragua or wherever the hardship is, or the Middle East, and they come here and you just see them thrive because they appreciate what's here, and I love that. And just so many, I'm on my dad's side. I don't know, I'm a 12th or 15th generation American, but I'm a patriot. I love America and I appreciate it, and I appreciate the American dream. I believe all this, but it is very easy to grow up a little bit privileged, jaded. All of that kind of comes together. You expect things. It's just an expectation.
That's horrible, wouldn't it?
And it's,
I hate to see that.
Yeah, and you have to shift your mindset as an American. Right. If you're born here and you're born in a nice situation, you go to good schools, you don't have as much of that adversity that you talk about in your book, but you have to. Not that you want to create adversity for yourself, but you can probably learn from other people's adversity.
Life as long as you open your eyes, you don't need to look for it.
Yeah, one way or another, you have some. Yeah,
at some particular time.
Yeah,
I mentioned the house in the Keys, and we were Gene and I, my wife and I, are walking around, and we're looking at particular colors and so forth. And so I'm looking at this one particular home, and it's blue, and so the fellow came out that owned the house, beautiful home. And he said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Well, we're kind of looking at colors and so forth." Well, one thing led to another. And conversations with strangers can be so productive.
Classic.
And he was a first-generation American, and he became a cop in Dade County, and then developed a lawyer referral service. But the interesting part was he had four sons. And one of the sons was there. He looked like The Rock. But one of the things he did, he insisted that all four of his boys serve 4 years in the military as his token of gratitude for the privilege of living in America.
Wow.
That brought a tear to my eye.
Awesome.
I mean, to see that, and then when I see the opposite side, when I see people, "Oh, this is so bad, this country's terrible," and so forth, who programmed you to believe that?
That's sad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But where do you get these ideas? Because I taught in an inner city school. I saw how great these kids were. I saw how well some of them did. Some of them did fantastic. So if they can do it, why didn't the door is open to everyone.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Well, I think that's a great learning lesson. Yeah, and to keep your eyes focused on it.
It's hard work and mindset.
That's it.
Yep.
That's it.
That's it.
And gratitude. Yep.
And gratitude. Well said.
Gratitude.
Very well said.
Gratitude. When you wake up every morning, I either say a prayer or at least thoughts of gratitude. It's important to have that.
Can I share my morning prayer?
Yes.
Sure.
I swim every morning, and I refuse to heat my pool. So that can be a little bit.
That'll wake you up.
You got to go in quick. You can't hesitate. So I get it, and boy, it feels good once you're in there. But that's also my spiritual moment. And every morning, it's the same. It's me again. My prayers today is the same as it was yesterday, the day before, and the day before. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't know how my life ever got this good, but I know you had your hand in the whole thing. Thank you. All I ask is enough wisdom and courage to live up to your expectations. Amen.
Wonderful.
I love
Wonderful.
Beautiful.
Great parting gift. Yeah.
Maybe we should end it on that.
Yeah, that's a high note for sure.
Armand, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for tuning into the Real Deal Investing Podcast. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.